Hey, want to get your ass kicked by a robot? Because Sega's newest release puts you one button press away from getting screwed 6 ways from Sunday by some ones and zeros. Puyo Puyo Champions for the Nintendo Switch, the PS4, the PC. It's called Puyo Puyo Esports in Japan. It sets a very high difficulty on its top menu, as it invites you to take 2 different flavors of butt whoopings as its introduction to the game. It's very honest to introduce the game like this though, because Puyo Puyo Champions is not set up to be a game about teaching you how to play Puyo. Unlike the recent spin-off, Puyo Puyo Tetris, that shows you the ropes in myriad ways, Champions is strictly for playing pure Puyo online and offline against the toughest challengers around the world. For those who may have never played Puyo Puyo before, it's a simple game where colored orbs fall from the top of the screen and slowly pool together at the bottom, and when the player lines up 4 Puyos that match in color, they pop, and the stack falls. If the stack falls, resulting in more matches, then you get a combo that throws gray garbage Puyos at your opponent, who then has to make their own matches to remove that garbage. So, whoever throws the most garbage at their opponent, by making a long combo chain, is the winner of the round, which, at the higher level, looks a little something like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, luminescence, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Clear the mind. Fighting Queen!
This must be what it feels like to be a god.
Did you enjoy my technique?
If you've played Puyo Puyo Tetris, then a lot of the interfaces and styling will look familiar, because Champions was built from the same core game as Puyo Puyo Tetris. The main changes being that there are no more Tetris blocks or Tetris characters, and the game features 2 different modes for playing Puyo. Puyo Puyo 2, which is considered to be the most normal rule set, and Puyo Puyo Fever mode, which adds an extra pattern recognition minigame to your regular match, where after a certain number of combos, your screen shifts to Fever mode, and you have about 20 seconds to knock over as many preset Puyo stacks as possible. In my opinion, it's a short-lived, sugary gimmick that doesn't really affect much strategically, other than to make the games go much longer. But it's also the only thing in all of Puyo Puyo Champions that could be seen as accessible to new players. Because everyone loves a good dynamite domino chain. In 2004, Puyo Pop Fever was Sega's final game to come out on the Dreamcast. That was 15 years ago. And since then, Sega's made Puyo for every console and handheld, but none of it came westward until Puyo Puyo Tetris. There's some ports of Puyo Puyo Fever, including one on the Sony Walkman. Yeah, that's a thing. The Sony Walkman had 2 video games loaded onto it, and one of them was Puyo Pop Fever. What could it possibly be like to have your dev credits be, "My game was on a Walkman. I developed for the MP3 atmosphere"? So, seeing Champions coming out feels like a sign that not only was Puyo Puyo Tetris really successful with its Tetris tag team push, but that Sega as a company is becoming more comfortable with its European and American audience. Hopefully we can take this to mean that they want to bring more Puyo adjacent content to the West, because this game has a lot of characters and I want to see more of them. Maybe we can get some of that old school Mado Monogatari. I mean, we gotta set up for the Puyo cinematic universe at this point, right? I think it'd be fun. Speaking of the characters, there's a whole lot of them in this game. They're cute and seem really fun. But once you choose a character, all of them just say 1, 2, 3, 4 to count out their combo. They kind of react to being attacked or winning or losing, but any flavor that choosing a character may add to a match is completely diminished by how little life they are given during actual gameplay. I started picking Carbuncle just because hearing that annoying "gah" over and over mixed it up a little bit. It's really disappointing because Puyo Tetris gave us a lot of variety with these characters, and now it's gone. It's another part of Champions that feels dry and serious. It's like a dad told Puyo Puyo that it's time to grow up and get a real job, and now Puyo works for esports. Look at me now, Dad! I'm a boring adult just like you are. And that's who's playing Puyo Puyo Champions. Adults. In spite of the cheery, childlike presentation, this is a game for cold and calculating adults. Puyo is a very solved game. You've got stacks, sandwiches, and GTR chains, and those strategies have barely changed over the decades of time. People have just gotten faster at building them, so the core of the meta, anywhere below the highest level of expertise, is entirely based on how quickly you can follow your favorite building pattern. Beginners love to learn strategy games like chess and Go, because even when you're getting beaten, you still feel like you can play and pursue victory. In Puyo, you know 5 seconds into a match whether or not you have a chance, and if you're like me and have only played about 60 hours of casual Puyo, then you usually don't stand a chance in any online or offline mode that Champions offers, which is very frustrating. On the upside, my favorite part of Champions is getting to watch incredible Puyo play with their versus viewer mode, where even a peasant like me can get a glimpse between the gated bars of Mount Olympus and see the gods frolic.
6, 5, 7, 8, 6, 9, 7, 10, 8, 11, 9, 12, 10. Lightning Queen.
Is it weird that this is such a niche game? Even if you're a fan of Puyo, then this might not actually be for you at all. With it being called Puyo Puyo Esports in Japan, Sega is pushing hard the fact that this game was made for professional competitors. It's a no-nonsense package, strictly for practicing your Puyo skills against the best of the best. But can video games support such a static strategy game like Puyo as an esport? There's precedence for Tetris's competitive support, so it's possible that a fan-based community can keep up the momentum. But with Sega at the helm, it is unlikely that we'll be seeing major support from them towards professionalizing Puyo, more than the lip service of titling the small release as esports. The bottom line is that if you're looking for a full video game, Puyo Puyo Champions is pretty Spartan. But you could also think of it as a $10 Puyo-only expansion to Puyo Puyo Tetris, and at that price, it's a pretty good bargain. We give Puyo Puyo Champions a kinda excited 3 out of 5. That's the end of the review. 3 stars. I'm not satisfied as having that be the ending of the discussion. So while we have this platform to talk about Puyo, I want to elaborate a little bit on my thoughts with regards to how Puyo is designed as a game. We've talked a lot about Puyo in relation to the much larger and more dynamic Puyo Puyo Tetris, which did a lot to change up Puyo Pop.
But Dan's looking really bad in Puyo. That might be it.
Oh, yeah, it is it.
No, he gets the red.
No!
He's out. Still surviving.
Like, he can't fire off his whole chain, but oh,
That's
he
it.
did.
That's it. Oh my gosh.
He made it.
Wow. Insane. That's insane. He still has one more swap. One more swap. And DDR Dan takes it in grand finals, a 3-2 over Wombo.
In isolation, though, Puyo Champions is exactly what Puyo has always been, and that's not a lot. Especially in my history with the game. Puyo is an add-on. An add-on to a Tetris game, an add-on to a Sega Collections, an add-on to Sonic itself. Puyo is a phone game, or a mobile game, or a Walkman game. Walkman! Sorry, seeing it here as a self-proclaimed esport is a lot of spin on a Puyo game, and Puyo's never had that before. Is it earned? Maybe. The competitive scene is definitely strong enough, but I'm not convinced the game itself is. Puyo as a game thrived during an era of minimalism in systems design. These are games that focus on one core system, and refine it to its utmost, shaving away any excess. That's minimalism in systems design. Usually because they're adapted to also be arcade games. Puyo Puyo Tetris represents a different direction of this design philosophy. Like many modern games, Puyo Tetris strives for maximalism, a design form that appreciates putting multiple systems together to see how they can interact. Maximalism rejects focusing on one set of rules in favor of overlapping many sets of rules, sometimes as many as possible. This happens sometimes out of market pressure or insecurity, like Red Dead 2's karma system that doesn't mesh with its aptitude towards linear storytelling. Other times, very recently, maximalism comes from large studios packaging their regular systems all together at once, like Fortnite and Apex Legends adding Battle Royale matchmaking to their usual suite of system-heavy RPG-based shooter mechanic sets. How does Puyo Puyo Esports compete with that? With this entry, I don't believe they're rising to the opportunities. Simply adding Fever mode isn't enough, although it's in the right direction. So if we assume a separate system has to be added to Puyo to become more maximalist in design, what could we add? Tetris 99 added massive multiplayer components to some success. That's possible. It feels a little quirky, a little opposite of how Puyo normally pushes itself as a blistering head-to-head game. RPG story campaign? Y'all remember Bomberman 64? Aw, that whole era, that sure was an era. Arcade games with level ups and story modes. 2004 is back, baby! Although, honestly, Puyo's roots in RPGs with Mado Monogatari would actually serve that brand really well. RPG story mechanics could add a lot. Maybe Puyo could, add some team-based competitive modes to add more players to the mix. Queue up with the crew to smash some other Puyo teams, sprinkle in some abilities, and charge up your ultimate on the road to Diamond rank. Oh, right, I'm just describing League and Overwatch now. Ooh, maximalism really lives and dies by Blizzard, doesn't it? I'm hopeless. Anyway, there's options here. It's just a thing to think about before we go. These are obviously really dramatic examples, ones that I'd probably never actually go with in favor of, small rule changes, something to add to the Sue and Fever rule sets that are in the game currently. But my point is that the Puyo game style is ripe for iteration and can be built out in many different directions. If Sega really wants to commit to making the best head-to-head fast-paced strategy game that we know Puyo can be, now is the time to start diversifying, anything to mix up the strategies so that more different kinds of players can play. Or else I'm worried the community will shrivel up just as quickly after all this recent goodwill. Because the word on the streets currently is, oh, Puyo, yeah, that's the game that taught me how much more amazing Tetris is. How do we get Puyo to rise up and compete with Tetris culturally? And can we do it with a simple game design tweak or a change in approach? I don't have a silver bullet answer up front, but I think it's a healthy question for a community to pursue, especially one like Puyo that is on the rise and finally has a company as large as Sega trying to back it up. That's all from me. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more videos like these, please let us know in the comments below. We've got plenty more gaming news, live streams, and podcasts, all featured at videogamechoochoo.com. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, or else I'll send Delgo to your home. He will control the rocks. Wait, is that... Let's stop the tape. Zoom in on front row. Okay, and enhance. Now play it back. Oh my god.
And DDR Dan takes it.
It's John and Michael.
Finals,